check. Oh, here we go. Okay. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. You can hear that? Okay, it was the input. Okay, cool. All right, so you hear that. All right, hold on. I'm going to change it to one thing. Hold on. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. It's still coming in at that one. Huh. Check, check. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. How's that volume sound? Does that volume sound okay? That does? Yeah? Okay. That does sound good? Okay, good. All right, cool. Then I'm good to go. I can, I'm going to call, I didn't call, let me turn this off. I didn't call,
Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yes. Playing first floor, last office down.
Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Check.
We are 100% working on it. We're going to do it's a school committee. I guess somebody's stepping down. They got some interview with all set up. You know, it's one of those ones where it's not going to be.
Not voting.
Yeah, school committee and the city council. Yeah. School committee / city council board meeting.
I hope this for you or what?
No.
Thanks, son.
I almost feel like, I almost feel like this treatment is a little more interesting. And I know I'd regret to say that, but you know what I'm saying. You know what you Which is fine. It's as simple as what you want. Yeah, it's easy. It's less for these guys. As a whole, doesn't want to be part of the solution, but he'll find a problem, like, I don't want to deal with it on Friday afternoon. So I said, what's wrong? I just want to let you know. The SID, DPS, is water squirting out of the faucet. All right. So, no, we went down to Higgins, we got the packet, that shit's not. The fact, you know what I mean, that just showed me, everyone's always too willing to pass the buck. The fact that, like, you just let me know it was a problem. They realized you could go, they went to Duke's, they got a PO, they got what they needed to get, they came back and they fixed it. We normally don't fuck up. That's a facility, they can do that. Which, to me, that just made me feel good, like, because that's the way we should be. Because I can't tell you how many times I'll go out of my way to help another department out. But yet, they'll leave you hanging out on an island when it comes time to repay the fee. But whatever, it is what it is. Yeah. All right, hey. Yeah, have a good one. See ya.
Oh, wait, why is this picking up audio now? Hello? Check, check. Oh, shit. Oh, I'm not. No, I think I need to do.
Check 1 2 1 2. Check check check. Yahtzee. Check 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 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check. Sarah needs a generator for PortMedia. Check 1 2. How much money do you have, Sarah Hayden? Maybe you'll get a generator. I hold all the power. Check 1 2 1 2. James Sokoloff and affiliates, don't go it alone, Sarah. Check 1 2 1 2. Check check check. Can you hear me, Sarah? One two one two. Check 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 1 2. Good evening. The oh. Check 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 1 2 1 2 1 2. Oh, I'm losing it. I lost it. I've been here since 6 o'clock this morning. They pay me 40 hours a week, and I think I'm like in the 50s right now. All right, we're good.
I carry a fan with me everywhere I go.
Check 1 2 1 2. B28. Check 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 check. Ba 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 ba. We good?
It's hot. Imagine being warm. Yeah, I don't know where you are. I have no idea what the. Yeah. Who knows? Hello, hello. Well, how are you? Warm as usual. I think you're on the other side. Ow. Hello, ladies. How are you? Yeah, there doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason, though. So.
Yeah, it's a little random. They're trying to mix us all up.
Basically. Have you been? Hot. I am perpetually hot anyways, but there's something about this building. Do you guys keep the heat at 75 here all of the time? Are you really? I honestly thought we would be downstairs.
I'm sure it's not regulatable.
Yeah, that's entirely true. I thought we'd be downstairs and I could open the window. I know.
Hi, how are you?
I should have never worn cashmere. It's all right. We'll squeeze them out.
Check 1 2.
Squished us in. I don't particularly want to be right in front of the microphone anyways. So. You're here with me, Jim. Hello, Counselor Cameron.
How are you?
Great. How's everything?
Pretty good.
Are you Counselor McCauley? Hello, hello.
I didn't get one. I like a ballot or something.
Yeah.
We all got red pencils. Sean
Bruce-
handed them out.
Bruce
I
did
don't know
not.
why. Oh, you
I
didn't
get
get
a
one?
red pencil.
We don't care if you're in it.
No. I don't get one.
Check 1 2 1 2.
Hi.
What was wrong with it?
I did the Peloton and walking up
You
those
broke it,
stairs.
Bruce.
Actually,
You will be
Sergeant.
getting a bill for this.
Isn't
It's
it
not-
Sergeant? Are you just noticing?
I'm just curious. Oh, it has City Hall on it? No.
I'm using my red pencil just because I have a red pencil. There you go. Six pencils. Well, that's the hard part, right? Where it gets tricky. Oh, God, I can't even imagine trying to teach it.
He's on his way.
Ask your sister.
Can't open the window tonight, sorry.
Exactly. I thought we were downstairs.
Me too.
Cashmere was a bad call. I've used it so much, I like killed it and I had to jury rig it here.
I was gonna try to parcel this. I'm not. I looked at it.
Who you missing? They all look perplexed over there.
Brian just called me, said he's driving here.
He's driving here now?
He's between the senior center and here. I'm like, okay.
Okay. Coming?
No.
Jim just talked to him.
Byron's on his way. He's between the senior center and here when I went over there, so he should.
Oh, is that where you went?
No, no. He drove by that way. And went here, so- So Byron's probably looking for a place to park.
Oh, there's my chance. It's
Yes.
gone.
Oh, that's right.
He loves that garage. Maybe he'll park there.
Plenty of room. So right?
All right, good evening. I would like to call the City Council and School Committee joint meeting to order. Clerk Jones, can you take the roll, please?
I'd be happy to. It's going to be the roll, a joint roll, alphabetical for the school committee and the city council. Member Callahan. Here. Councilor Cameron. Yes. Councilor Donahue. Here. Councilor Hall. I'm sorry, Member Hall. Here. Councilor Khan. Present. Councilor Lane. Here. Councilor McCauley. Here. Member Menon. Here. Councilor Preston. Here. Councilor Vogel. Present. Member Walker. Present. Councilor Wallace. Here. Councilor Z.
Here. Okay, so before we get started, I'm just going to thank NCM Hub for being here tonight. Sarah, I'm going to look at you and just, you have to answer a question for me. For this to get picked up, everyone has to talk in the microphone, right? Sorry, so when it's time to speak, when we get to the questions, just we're going to pass these microphones around, okay? Otherwise, it's not going to pick it up. So they are actually able to broadcast live tonight, which is great. So if you're watching at home, thank you for tuning in. Because there is a vacancy in the office of an elected school committee pursuant to the city charter, section 4-6, the city council president has convened this joint meeting of the city council and school committee, and this meeting shall be presided over by the mayor. The purpose of this meeting is to review applicants for this interim office and allow them an opportunity at this meeting to present their credentials to this joint body for their consideration. It is important to note that the individual selected by the City Council and School Committee will fill the position for the remainder of this term ending December 31st, 2023. If the selected candidate wants to continue to serve on the school committee beyond this interim period, they will have to run for an election in the fall of 2023 for the new term starting in January 2023. There are 6 candidates for this interim position on the school committee tonight. We started at 7, just so everyone knows. A little after 5 o'clock, candidate Dan Blair withdrew his name. So I first would like to say, Dan, thank you for originally applying, and we appreciate you having an interest serving your community. So I just wanted to say a little bit tonight. So 5 years ago, this is how I got on the school committee, was this process. And you know, it's very different than running, right? So this is almost like a job interview. You're coming in for us tonight to tell us what you got and tell us why you think you'd be a great fit on the school committee. I think this is a great opportunity for somebody, being that it is such a little bit over a year commitment to the school committee, and then you can decide, you know, if you'd like to continue moving forward. But I can say I would not be sitting here tonight in front of you as your mayor if I didn't take the leap and go through this opportunity. So I think it's a great opportunity for a resident to serve. So tonight, we're going to have each candidate come up. We've listed them in alphabetical order. You're going to have 5 minutes. I'm going to be the keeper of the time to give us your pitch and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then once you finish, we will move to questions, Q&A from the panel here. And we'll do that for 10 minutes, and I'll keep the time on that as well. Any questions from anybody before we start? Everyone's good? Everyone feel good?
Just to be clear, so it's individual 5 minutes and then 10 minutes of questions
Yes.
per individual.
Per individual, yeah. So 15 minutes total per candidate. Okay. So our first candidate tonight is Bruce Bergwall. Bruce, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
Council, School Committee.
Oh, it's on. I think we'll have to adjust
I
it.
got to raise it up a little bit here. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, School Committee. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. My name is Bruce Bergwall. I've been a resident here of Newburyport for the past 7 years. I want to be on the school committee because I believe there's nothing more important for a citizen of our town than serving the school system, supporting the students, supporting the families, and supporting the teachers. I'm an entrepreneur, a businessman. I currently am still working, but I'm also a father, a grandfather, a son, a brother, and probably assorted other names as well. But my real passion in life has been helping people improve their lives through learning. For the past 30 years, I've taught. I spent quite a bit of time producing educational television programs for elementary, secondary schools, as well as post-secondary education programs. And but as of the last 10 years, I've been directly involved with helping educational programs use technology to improve outcomes, to improve retention, to improve impact, and the efficacy of the learning process. I grew up in a home where teaching was an important part. Learning was an important part of our household. My parents were both teachers. I have 2 children who are teachers. 2 of the 5 of our children are teachers. I'm the only one who didn't become a teacher of my siblings, I should say, with the exception of 1. I grew up in a home, also one thing that was very impactful for me is I grew up in a home with a learning disabled sister. And the one thing that taught me growing up as a child and also as an adult, taught me a lot about humility, taught me about patience, but it also taught me that everyone is not equal. But what really is important is giving everyone an opportunity to reach their potential. And however you do it, and whatever means can be, and the educational system is a key part of that. I believe supporting teachers is critical. I also think that I speak with my daughter, who has been now 20 years teaching 7th and 8th grade history at a school district in Pennsylvania, and she tells me frequently about the challenges of being a teacher, dealing with students, dealing with their families, dealing with the administration. And it's a challenge. Teachers need our support, and that's one of the things I believe I have an ear for, and I'm here to certainly help support that effort. I think that if the other part of this aspect that has really intrigued me is that I've learned that families are such a critical part of the learning process for any student. I grew up in a community where there were parents who did care about their students' success, their children's success, I should say. But also there were way too many parents who did not care at all, and they were very indifferent. Reminding parents of their responsibility, I think, is one thing that the school board can do, and one thing I feel is important to do would be to do as a member of the school board. Learning doesn't happen in a vacuum. Much of it is going to occur in the school, but it also occurs outside the school. That's why supporting the families is so important. You know, there are many other aspects of the learning process that I am very interested and very anxious to be able to share, both what I've learned and what I've seen. But, you know, I think one of the things I often think back is, you know, Western civilization has given us many, many things: democracy, science, literature, philosophy, art, but none of these would be possible without education. And I think to myself, that's why this is so critically important. Supporting our students, supporting each of them, supporting their families, and being able to contribute to the school committee collaboratively and working with them is something I would look forward to. So with that, I want to thank you for your time and consideration, and I look forward to your questions.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Just for future candidates to come up here, if I hold up my hand and give you the one minute mark, that's just giving you a heads up that you've got the 1 minute mark. You've got to finish up. Okay, so we'll move to the Q&A section. So this will be 10 minutes. All right, so do we have someone who would like to ask the first question? Councilor Khan? Just make sure you're talking to the mic. Oh, it might not be on. Yeah.
Can folks hear me? There we go. I guess my question is, given that this is a 1 year kind of commitment here, what is the one thing, if you were to, out of the prioritization in your mind of what you would like to bring and maybe an action item for the year that you'll be on, is there one thing that comes to your mind that you would like to make sure you bring to the table or you bring to fruition? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think part of what I can do to help reinforce the importance of the parent-teacher-student relationship, that triangle of learning, to me, that's a critical aspect. And I think many times there are many parents, and I've met them and we probably know some of them, who feel it's the school's job to educate their students or educate their children. I think it's a collaborative effort. And one thing I'd like to do is leave with the school committee and the school community is the importance of getting parents involved in that learning process.
Great. Thank you. Councilor McCauley.
Okay, hello. Thank you for your time tonight. On April 6th of this year, we had a meeting of the Education Committee, and in that meeting, the superintendent was asked the question by me, if he could describe and quantify the amount of learning loss and if there was any behavioral issues in the school, given the past 2 years of COVID. And his answer was he didn't see any learning loss and he didn't see any behavioral issues. Yet in this year's budget, there are a number of line items for interventionists, behavioral specialists, and psychologists. So my question is, as a school committee member, how would you reconcile this apparent gap in the narrative, and how do we support these students going forward? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. I think there are two parts to that. In terms of understanding what the gap is and quantifying what that gap is in learning, I think that's a challenge, and I don't think there's going to be an easy answer. I have to confess, I am not fully aware of all the services that have been provided in terms of what's being required or what's been added in an effort to try to address what may be a perceived shortfall, whether those are for educational, behavioral, other issues that may be out there. That would be something to look at. I don't know whether or not the school district here, and I don't know the measurements they're using currently to measure results from 2019, 20, 21, how that may be comparing, and if that's what the superintendent is looking at. But I do think it's important to understand that there have been changes. Whether the changes or suggestions for improvement are the right ones at this moment, I have to say I'm not certain, but it's certainly something I would definitely be looking into.
Council Vogel?
Bruce, thank you kindly for being here, and we greatly appreciate your time. You mentioned what caught my ear was the idea of the school committee being involved in bringing the parents along, if you will, in the education process. Have you given any thought as to, fundamentally, or how you would approach that?
Two ideas. As a parent who would participate in this often in the school programs that the kids had, I don't know how you make people do things. I think it's always been a challenge, but I do think it's important that you draw parents in. You don't drive them. You draw them in by showing the results, and you make it clear to the parents what's happening when the parents are involved in their child's education. I think many school systems, at least the ones I'm most familiar with, have had a tendency not to play that piece out. They've not displayed that result. And I think making clear, or trying to make clear, that parent-teacher-student relationship and the success it brings is something that needs to be brought out.
Council Cameron?
Thank you. Mr. Bergwall, what is your understanding of social emotional learning practices, and what's your take on those in our schools?
Take the actual efforts that are going on today inside the schools, I do not have a direct hands-on understanding or experience with. It's one of the things I would get up to speed with in understanding that side. If you use the word social and emotional, I often think of the words motivational. Motivation is the number one, if I should say, one of the keys to learning in any environment. And motivation is directly impacted by social and emotional aspects. I think being sensitive, being aware, paying attention to the needs of students and what their individual differences are is one of the most important aspects. I've seen this many times. I don't know if there's ever going to be a blanket answer that says do this program or have this answer, but it's a case of dealing with students one-on-one. We all know that learning is hard. It takes an effort. And dealing with the emotions and the social aspects of it are just other aspects, not unimportant, but additional aspects that need to be brought into the learning process.
School committee member, Brennan.
First, I want to thank you for being a candidate. This is, I think, the 5th time I've done this, and I have never seen a group of candidates as qualified as we have this time. So I
really appreciate that. Also, this is a very rare opportunity where there are 3 Bruces in the same room. Doesn't happen very often, and I appreciate that. You kind of alluded to differentiated instruction. I just wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that, how you view that.
Sure. You know, individual differences is probably one of the greatest challenges of anyone teaching a class. And I do think that the ability to address individual differences has always been a key issue. When I was producing television programs, educational television programs, the goal was to try to reach those who had less than ideal reading skills. Now technology allows us to understand in some ways where the changes or opportunities could be for gaining and understanding. I don't think there's ever going to be one answer that says this is the best way to address all the individual differences in a classroom. But I think, as I had mentioned previously in the last question, the ability to focus and listen and understand what the needs are of that student, what the experiences are, and what motivates, what drives them as an individual student is one of the key things to help address individual differences. I am not a professional educator by background, but I know that in working with students and helping students learn multiple modalities and being able to provide different ways that they can try to learn things is certainly one of the keys to addressing that issue.
Other questions? All right, I'll ask one. Bruce, what are 3 or 4 things that you think again, you've talked a little bit about your background tonight, but what are 3 or 4 things that you think that you'd have to really get a handle on if you're elected to this position tonight?
I think number one is understanding what are the priorities of the school committee. Deeply understanding what are the goals and priorities going forward. What are the key issues? In any organization, the 80-20 rule is alive and well. Finding out what are those 20% of the issues that are creating 80% of the problems, and how can we work to address those? Clearly the budget. I have a strong financial and P&L background, comfortable with numbers, but having a feel for what's going on there. And then also understanding the collective bargaining agreement. What's involved with that? How is that set up? What can be done, and what are the structures there? So there is a learning curve, no question about it, but I am a quick learner, and I look forward to that.
Any other questions? Everyone good? All right, Bruce, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And under time, both times. That's pretty good. All right. Next, we will hear from Prince Boateng.
Last guy was tall.
All right,
Hi.
Prince. Go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam President, City Council members, and committee members. My name is Prince Boateng. I've been in Newburyport for the past 7 years, and just wanted to spend some time talking to you about why I'm interested in this position. To be honest, City Council school committee member was never on my radar. But I realized when this position came up that it presents a good opportunity to contribute to the city that I love, that I've come to love, and I have some skills that I can contribute to the important work that's being done in our community. There are very important conversations going on right now with different viewing points, and I want to say that I support those conversations that's going on. I come to this position without any specific agenda or specific policy viewpoint, but I have 5 points that I wanted to make to maybe give you a little bit about my background and experience. The first point that I want to make is I think that we're lucky to live in a community where we have some of the highly educators within our state. If you look at the data, Newburyport school educators are among the the highest rating within our state. So for example, 99.8% of our educators are licensed, which is higher than the state average. 88% of our teachers have over 3 years of experience teaching, which is very, very impressive. And I think overall, the way I view the committee's job, the school committee's job, is to oversee the work and the operations of the school. But we're so lucky to have highly educators here that I think we need to provide them with deference in doing their work. Obviously, providing deference doesn't mean that we don't do a good job in oversight. There are some, although there are a lot of great things happening in the community, there are some areas that I see concerns. When you look at the data, you see the Newburyport schools are lagging in some grade levels. So for example, in grade 4 and grade 8, you see a lagging in ELA, MCAT scores. That's concerning. It's something that we need to pay attention to. We tend to focus, and I'm actually focusing on achievement right now, but I think sometimes we tend to over-focus on achievement and give less focus on the achievement gaps. We still have some achievement gaps within our community, and that's something that we need to address. So for example, kids with come from low income household in our city, from grade 3 to 6, we see that 32% of them are scoring lower on MCAT scores. That's a concern that we can find ways to address those concerns. It's not just kids with lower income, but we also see achievement gaps in kids with disability in our community. It's something that we can also look to address, and I think it's important that we try to do that. So for the children with disability in our community, 65% of them are not able to graduate within that 4-year time frame in high school. That's a concern that it's something that we should look at. Another big concern that I personally have for the city is, and for our children in our community, is preparing them for the world that they're going to live in, right? So Newburyport, if you leave here and get on 95 and get out of Newburyport, Newburyport is different than the rest of the country. We need to be able to prepare our children to be able to live in the real world.
All right, Prince, I'm going to, you're right at 5 minutes, okay, because I'm going to stop you. Thank you so much. Okay. We'll now move to the question and answer portion. Any counselor would like to, a counselor or school committee member would like to go first? Counselor McCauley? Oh, I'm sorry. School committee member Walker.
Is it on? Okay. Good evening. Thank you for your application and for your comments and for the thorough comments in your application as well. I'd like to hear a little more about your prior experiences, whether they're professional or volunteer, how those have, you think those have prepared you for this role on the school committee. So
I've been in the Navy for I think the past 18 years. In the Navy, I've had several roles that you would think that would not be very relevant to school committee. But one example would be, I spent about 4 years at the Pentagon where I was looking at budgeting issues. So there is the process that we would work on budgeting will be trying to find out what you think your priorities are going to be in 5 years from now. And knowing those priorities, what you then do is you do a systematic, you take a systematic approach in identifying resources that's going to help you support that priority. So, for example, the the council is responsible for budgeting. It means that we have to figure out what the community's priorities are in, say, in the future. It means that when you're looking at the budget, you're making sure that what we say is our priority, we're actually dedicating resources to it. Because it doesn't matter to say something is a priority when you're not dedicating resources to it. So those are just one quick example.
Next question. Councilor McCauley, would you like to go?
Okay, first of all, thank you for your service and thank you for being here today. In the context of Newburyport, can you explain to us how we use school choice, what the funds are used for, and what you would advocate the use of those funds for?
I cannot tell you a lot about what we do regarding school choice. But what I can tell you is my approach in looking at policy will be able to allow me to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of the work. So, I would need to study up on looking at what it is that the options for parents and school choice are. And with my background in policy work, I should be able to get running and understanding those issues.
Member Brennan.
Thank you. In looking at the resume, the CV that you sent us, I'm impressed with your college experience. You've got a bachelor's degree, you've got 3 master's degrees, you're finishing up a doctorate. You've spent more time in school than anybody I know, actually, when I think about it. Can you tell me what you think you will draw from that higher education experience that will be useful to you here?
I was a terrible student in lower grades. I had a fantastic year in high school in Brooklyn where I had some of the best teachers. I just fell in love with education from my social studies teacher. And the reason why I have all those degrees is it's based on the assignments that I've had over the years. So if I'm doing work related to, policy and war, I figured I'm gonna be reading up on this, so let me spend more time reading up on it. I don't know how to answer that question.
So I'm hearing from people from home that they're having a hard time hearing people.
Okay.
So Prince, you need to make sure you're just right in the microphone.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, any other questions? Let's go to the other side of the room. Councilor Khan?
Okay, great. I guess I'm going to ask the same question because I really am, this is unique. It's a 1 year. And what would be the one area that you would like to see bring to fruition, if you have an idea of what you'd like to bring to the school committee or get kind of in place during your tenure?
Yeah, I'm particularly fascinated with the policy work that's going to be happening in the next year. I think my background and skill provides an opportunity to do policy work and look at how our schools operate. So that's what I'm sort of focusing on. It's the policy work that's going to be going on in the next year.
Next question. Councilor Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Boateng, for offering your service here, and thank you for your service as well. So I'm going to ask the same question of every candidate. What's your take on social emotional learning, and how does that understanding fit into the Newburyport Public Schools and the school committee?
I think that we focus a lot on math, science, and the hard skills that students need to get. I don't think we focus enough on the soft skills that a lot of students need. Again, we don't know what we have an idea of what the world is going to be like when our children are older, which is it's going to be a more diverse world. There's going to be a need to be able to relate to people. As globally we all get together, there's a need to be able to relate to more people. And for me, and I don't know if we'll define what social emotional learning as the same, but to me, it's just being able to teach our students and our kids to be empathetic, have a better understanding of the community that they live in. I don't really view it, I don't think that it's about a particular topic, right? So nobody's going to a class on social emotional learning. It's just an approach where we're just encouraging kids preparing kids to be able to live in a world that's ahead of them.
Council Vogel?
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. You started off with the statement that serving on the school committee wasn't on your radar screen. How did it drop onto your radar screen all of a sudden?
Well, I found out about the resignation, and the first thing that I did when my wife, to be honest, said, well, maybe you should run for this, was look at what this really is, right? So I went on did some research and found out the school committee's charter and sort of read about the work that they do. We're all limited in bandwidth, but my daughter actually, when I was talking to her, said to me, wait, you're gonna do something else? How are you going to find time to do that? And my answer to her was, we all have 24 hours in a day. What you can do is dedicate time to things that you think are important. And I think this is important, so I figured I would dedicate, some things we'll have to give, but I would dedicate that time to it because of, what the work entails. And again, this coming year, what the policy review that's gonna go on in the school. So.
Thank you. And that was sort of a follow-up question is, I know you well enough to understand your bandwidth, so thank you for that.
Any other questions? All right, I'll ask one. How important do you think it's transparency in relation to the school committee? And just tell us a little bit about that.
Transparency in any government organization is extremely important. People need to have faith that everybody that's here is representing the people in the community, and people need to have faith that you're doing that in good faith, and that the work that you're doing, you're representing their interests. So I think transparency is extremely important. People need to trust that work that's being done is being done genuinely in their interests. And people need to be able to question what their government is doing, even if you don't agree with them. I can give you a quick example.
Just really quick.
So,
thank you.
When we were, I think a few months ago, there was a policy review, and there was social emotional learning presentation. And there was a lot of pushback from some in the community, and there were a lot of questions. And to me, that was, I thought it was great to see people pushing back against, issues, even if you don't agree with the viewpoint. I think transparency is just allowing the community to be able to question what the government is doing, and that should be expected.
All right, thank you very much, Prince. Appreciate it. That's it. Sorry, that's the last question. Sorry, Prince. I should have said that. All right, thank you. Our next candidate is Michael Brennan. Good evening, Michael.
Sean. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. With a name like Brennan, I thought that I'd be number one. I'm surprised to be number three here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for taking the time to fill this spot. I am Mike Brennan. I live at 16 Eagle Street. I have my wife and I have 6 children. We're both pretty much lifelong residents of Newburyport. Moved away for 3 years back right after college, and have been back here since 1999. With our 6 children, I think that gives me a bit of a unique perspective on the school system, just by the fact that we've been able to kind of be involved and witness our children go through for all those years. So as I prepared tonight to think about this job interview, I thought first of all I needed to probably figure out what it was that what did the role of the school committee entail. So for help with that, I went out on the internet. I just kind of Googled role of the Massachusetts School Committee. And what I came up with was a quote from a past commissioner of education. His name is, actually I don't have his name with me, but, and basically he said, we view the school committee as the publicly elected or appointed equivalent of a board of directors of a corporation, which in this case is a school system. So with that in mind, I thought, okay, well, how can I kind of give you here tonight a perspective or an idea about how I would serve in that role. So I thought I would maybe walk you through my thought process a little bit. So as I thought about that and the role and how I would perform it, I think the first question that I went to was, okay, how much does the Newburyport school system spend on education? And I got this from the Mass Department of Education website. And Newburyport right now spends $18,000 per pupil. Okay, what does that mean? So you compare it to, say, North Reading, and North Reading is at $17,400 per pupil. Linfield is $16,500. Okay, so, okay. Now let's kind of look at that and compare it to what the MCAS scores are in 2022. So for 2022, grades 3 through 8, the average scores of the 12 tests that were taken, math and ELA at each grade level. Newburyport school system, 55% of the students scored in the category of not meeting expectations. North Reading, in comparison, again, using the same two cities and towns cities for comparison, 34% of students in North Reading didn't meet expectations. And then for comparison, again, Linfield was 38%. And then on a broader level, if we think of the state designated comparable districts, so there's 11 districts that I could see that the report gets compared to based on demographics and I guess income levels and a variety of different things, population. And so for that, Newburyport in English and language arts finished second to last. And for math, Newburyport finished second to last as well. All but 2 districts in the math scoring, all but 2 districts scored greater than 10 points better than Newburyport. So we were at the bottom by quite a bit. So then I said, okay, well, let's look at, that's just 1 year. Let's look at kind of 2022 versus 2021. And so in Newburyport, there was a 6-point decline in this year's test result versus last. Went from 49% not meeting expectations to 55%. North Reading was flat, 34% versus 34%, and Linfield declined by 2 points, 36% to 38%. Thank you. And then I kind of said, okay, well, let's look back even further, and let's go back to 2017, the first year where I think the new MCAS test was put into place. And in 2017, again, grades 3 through 8, Newburyport, 42% of students not meeting expectations. North Reading, comparison, 38%. So in 2017, North Reading and Newburyport were about the same in terms of how we were performing as districts comparatively. So something's gone, it seems. My question would be, again, I'm giving you my thought process here in terms of how I would perform my role as part of the board of directors of the school committee or of the school system, is what happened? How did we go from, just kind of pretty troubling results in 2022 on their own, but then to put it in perspective, North Reading scoring pretty well and we were right with them back in 2017. So that's just kind of how my thought process works, how I would go through, my role in the school committee if I was, elected to serve. So thank you.
I was trained before.
You can use this one.
Okay, we're back. On to the Q&A. Who would like to go first? Councilor McCauley?
Thank you very much. A recent assignment in social study was to evaluate the American dream. The 5 source materials were all negative. The question I have for you, if a parent or a group of parents came to you to raise an objection as to the study of this subject in such a singular perspective, what would you do to assure the parents, and what steps might you take within the school committee as within your role as board of directors?
Yeah, I think I'd first try to understand, where that curriculum was coming from. Was it a state mandated curriculum, or was there some leeway there that the city had in terms of picking that particular subject matter and addressing the lesson in the way that it was addressed? From there, once I figured that out with some clarity, I think then kind of could take some steps. If it wasn't state mandated, then my next question would be to the superintendent, why is it, that negative view of the United States being presented? And depending on that answer, then, we'd go to or even before that, or in conjunction with that, the larger school committee to figure out, at least an honest answer to the parents. I mean, it might not be an answer that I would like, or even the parent would like, but I think at least if they know that their answer is being addressed, and there's transparency in what our kids are being taught, then at that point there's not a lot you can do. Then you have to take it to the next level. But I'm not sure if that's what happened.
Councilor Khan? Oh.
Great, thank you. Thanks for putting your name forth as well. Same question as I've been asking is, given it's a 1 year, what do you see as a priority and what you would like to accomplish in your year as part of the school committee?
Yeah, I think the main priority would be figuring out why our MCAS scores are so low, and then moving from there to figure out how we improve them together as a community. That'd be number one. And then also, I think, kind of giving a bit more respect back to parents. I mean, this is an example that was just used, or, teaching kids things that I'm not quite sure are appropriate for the school systems, and that gets into the letter that I sent to you in terms of a long-term plan for anti-indoctrination initiative, political and sexual.
School Committee Member Walker.
So thank you for referring to your letter, Mr. Brennan, and thank you for your application. I do have some clarification questions on the letter that you put forward.
Sure.
You did state very specific objectives, which you alluded to tonight. You also have a history, since I've been on the school committee, of emailing your concerns to the school committee and sometimes the city council. Your concerns. Sometimes I believe personally that there are false statements in those concerns, and you're corrected by, or you're responded to by both the school administration, occasionally school committee members, to clarify or answer some of your concerns. My experience in my short time on the school committee is that you often will question the responses and the factual validity of some of the responses you're given. So my question to you, in your statement on your application that you will work collaboratively with the school committee and the administration, can you explain to me how you will do that, given that it appears that you have distrust of the very individuals that you will be working with, given that history?
I guess in order to answer that, I have to ask you if you could give me, you made a statement that I've made incorrect statements and I've been corrected on those, so could you give me an example of that?
It is my view that you have a perception about, you've made statements about individual staff's approach to things. You've been corrected on that approach, and you seem to still believe your original view.
I don't know what you're talking about. If you could give me the specific example I have no idea what you're talking about.
I would appreciate it if you would answer the question about how you perceive you'll be a collaborative person, given that you have
That's fine. I will answer that
history
question
here.
just in general, but for the record, you know, you made a claim and you didn't give me the example of what that claim was. But we'll move on. Yeah. So how I'd be collaborative, I would operate in a manner that was best to figure out how to move forward and improve our school system. And you know, I would be open and honest, and always think about what I was doing in the best interest of the kids. That's all. So.
School Committee Member Brennan.
Mr. Brennan, thank you again for being here and putting the application in. One of the biggest challenges that I experienced when I joined the school committee 22 years ago was making a transition from seeing what's happening in the district through the lens of my two kids and their experiences to sort of realizing that I'm now responsible for 2,200 kids. Can you talk to me about how you're going to navigate that transition? And I will also add that I've probably worked with 40, maybe 50 school committee members. The school committee members who make that transition are very effective, very strong. The school committee members I've seen who don't make the transition don't last long in the school committee and aren't able to really contribute a lot. So I'm really interested in how you're going to navigate that.
How I'm going to navigate thinking about
How you're going to
my
navigate
own children.
from seeing the world through the eyes of your children to realizing that there's 2,200 students who have diversity and differences and various economic levels, various religious places. How are you going to navigate taking care of those kids too?
Yeah, I think I think first of all, I think what my appointment to the school committee might bring is some diversity of thought. So it might be helpful to get a perspective on what others in the community think that might be different than it seems the views of the current construction of the committee. So I think that would be helpful in that way. And then beyond that, I mean, I've been in this community for my whole life. It's important to me. I take great pride in it. My father was born and raised here. My grandfather was born and raised here. I take great pride in the fact that the Newburyport public school system has always provided a high-level education. I was the beneficiary of that. And, you know, that's what I would look to do, is I'm not looking to improve the system for my own kids. I'm looking to improve it for the broader community and the country, to be honest with you, because what's going on right now is detrimental to the country. And I think I'll get to the answer to that when hopefully I get the question about transformative social emotional learning.
Ed, you want to go?
All right, I'm queued up. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Brennan, for your interest in this opening. And yes, could you give me your understanding of social emotional learning and how that applies to the Newburyport Public Schools?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, and the school committee has, the school committee has an email on this that has, you know, great detail, and I'd be happy to provide it to the rest of the city council after this if you'd like, regardless of outcome. But social emotional learning, in my understanding of it, changed in 2019. And in 2019, it changed to something called transformative social emotional learning. If you go to the Second Step website, which is a program that Newburyport School Systems purchases right now, it identifies itself as self-identified transformative social emotional learning program. And if you follow the link, they bring you to a link to a very educational document. And in that educational document, it's very difficult to read, and no one in their right mind would read it unless they were really interested in figuring out what was going on and why some of the things that I've witnessed happen in the school system are happening. And if you read that, it's very clear that that document, it's the foundational document for transformative social emotional learning. Again, it started in 2019. That document is clear that there's an ideology behind it, and they're trying to transform our country, upset the norms from a capitalist country to socialist. They're trying to divide us by race and class, the ideology paints the United States as a fundamentally flawed country, inherently racist, systemically racist. So that's what my view is, and I've asked the school committee to let me know how our kids weren't going to be indoctrinated in that way, and I'm waiting for an answer. And I did not get an answer at the forum. I was told that that we had asked the same question, gave the same answer, and I was accused of lying by one principal, and the superintendent's answer was, I don't know anything about ideology. So that's my understanding.
We have about like 30 seconds. Does anyone else have a question that they'd like to ask? Councilor Donahue?
Your right hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brennan, for your application. I would like to know what it is that you would bring to our school committee to support our transgender students that are struggling to be accepted by this community.
Well, I'd bring my Catholic faith, I guess, and saying that every child is, born in the likeness in the image of God.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're at 10 minutes. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay, next on the list is Thomas Getz. Come on down. Hold on one second, Thomas. But this side will be a lot quieter. That's the only.
Are you sure? I think it's just a matter of being closer, is it not? Yeah, I think you need to speak close and into the mic. Yeah.
Sarah, can you hear my stomach growling? I just want to know how good my mic is.
Just let me know if that's better or not.
So I'm going to thank the...
Hey, Mr. Getz, thank you so much for being here tonight. Go ahead, you got 5 minutes.
Get right up to it. Get right up to the mic.
Yeah, he's good.
Okay, I want to thank the school committee and the city council for allowing me to come and apply for this position. My name is Thomas Getz, Newburyport resident since 1973. So I bring a residence history. But I come tonight with no agenda other than to improve communication with effective listening skills. The skills I've learned through training is lead with a statement, not with a question. Leading with a question often results in a defensive reaction. Doesn't know where that question came from. I've utilized improved communication skills in my 5th grade teaching experience. Every Friday, my teaching partner and I would meet with their entire team of 50 students face-to-face in a large circle. The procedure was, student with a complaint would face the student and state the incident, followed by how it made the offended student feel. The accused student would then repeat the incident and its accompanying feeling. Finally, discussion would begin. Clear understanding through repetition usually helped with the resolution. My education understanding is a product of my teaching experience, a wide variety. In Maryland for 4 years, I taught 8th grade English. Had some unusual experiences. Following the attempted assassination of George Wallace about a mile from my school, we were victimized by a group of bat-wielding boys who proceeded to enter our school, breaking windows and trying to kick in our locked classroom doors. For the next several days, the male teachers were scattered in the woods surrounding the school to intercept any further attempts of intrusion. Not exactly covered in my education training. My last year in Maryland, we were involved in a county-wide desegregation order in January. Yes, January. I was switched from a previously all-white junior high school to a previously all-black junior high school. My first attempt to get my class's attention was ignored. The principal walked in, and he was booed. Phew, it's not my fault. So I spent the next several weeks calling 3 parents a night, and eventually a somewhat normal classroom resulted. The power of parent involvement. My first job in Massachusetts was for 4 years teaching math, science, and reading in a 6th grade school. The Marblehead parochial system ended, putting a large number of students into the public system. The solution was to send all graduating 5th graders to a 6th grade school in the now vacant parochial school building. This relatively small school with teaching teams was enjoyed by all. Students met and befriended each other. Many teachers enjoyed team teaching, and the 7th grade teachers to receive these kids welcomed friendly students with little anxiety in entering a junior high school experience. Later in Marblehead, I was part of a planning committee investigating middle school philosophy. Brain studies indicated that brain growth slowed while the body growth expanded during 5th to 8th grade years. Suggestion was to focus less on academic and more on activities, group projects, and socialization. To see the system in action, we visited Newburyport's Rupert Knock Middle School. Example of my 5th grade 2-person team was to follow up our colonial history unit with a colonial history museum. Each student selected a colonial occupation, developed a character, dressed up, built props, and a daily life story that were presented to parents as they visited various sites in the museum. My goal on the school committee would be to utilize my extensive experience to bring insight and perspective to the issues before the school committee. I also want to add that my 2 children both had a very successful high school experience in this system. My son Matt experienced beyond his comfort zone. A member of the drama club, he performed with Joe Curry in many, many productions. As a 2-year member of the cross-country team, he trained hard and reveled in the kindness and respect of the team. Often he finished out of the top 6, but at one meet, the leaders waited to cross the finish line to allow him to finish first. My daughter Kate
About 10 seconds, okay, Mr. Getz.
experimented much outside the school walls. With a school group at the New Hampshire primary campaign, she listened to Hillary Clinton and met Joe Biden. We have a photo as he presented her with a hastily written birthday card. Her visit to the United Nations with Newburyport's Model UN program inspired her college major and her eventual 10-month farming trip across Europe and Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Getz.
Newburyport did its job.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, on to the Q&A. Who would like to be first? Councilor McCauley.
Thank you for coming out tonight and for your application. Question I have, it may be along your lines of what you just explained, but you know, it's been a tough couple years for some of the students here, and a lot of the metrics we use to measure success aren't flowing in the right direction. So, as a school committee member, what policies or steps do you think could be undertaken to support some of these kids who are struggling to achieve?
Well, I think it often goes back to my whole issue with the lack of communication skills. So many times people give their point of view, and then without the other person acknowledging what was said, they jump right in with their counter. So to me, a good training activity for kids is to make sure that we understand that when they talk to each other, there's emotion involved in that discussion. And to separate the emotion from the incident, I think is important. Metrics on your math scores, I think, is all a minor piece of the problem. I think the important piece is to the teacher and the student to communicate with each other in a meaningful way, the student to communicate with each other in meaningful ways, and that should lead to maybe a possible implementation of some other source.
Who will let you next? Councilor Khan?
Yes, thank you. And same question I've been asking, what would be your priority kind of area or topic that you'd like to address in the coming year?
My priority is global warming. I think it's an issue that has been buried in the last year or so with all the political commentary about other things, but global warming is an issue that's going to affect ourselves for the next 30 years. And if we're going to educate kids to be leaders in the next 20 or 30 years, they're going to be faced with this. And it's time that they learn right now what the issues are and possible approaches so that they're aware of what they have to face in the future.
Councilor Kimman?
Thank you, Mr. Getz, and thank you for being here and putting your name forward. My similar question to the other candidates, could you explain your understanding of social emotional learning and how does social emotional learning apply within the Newburyport schools?
Social emotional learning is so vague in so many different interpretations. For me, every interaction goes with a piece of what happened and how it made me feel. And if we can expand on those two areas in conversations, what actually happened and the feelings involved, I think is going to be very important. I was part co-founder of River Valley Charter School. And one of the issues in that school was multi-age classrooms. And so if you had 4th, 5th, and 6th graders in the same classroom, it sometimes seemed unmanageable. But if you're very conscious of how they talk to each other, example I always use is, a little 4th grader came in one day to my class in tears. 6th grader walked over, put her arms around her, comforted her. About 3 weeks later, the 6th grade teacher came in tears. The 4th grader walked right up and comforted her. So it seemed to me social emotional learning is just centered around how people treat each other.
Next question. Member Brennan?
Mr. Getz, as an old Montessori teacher, you're not going to get any argument about multi-age classrooms from me. I wish we were doing it. Your work on the Human Resources Commission is legendary as somebody who just joined that commission. Can you tell me how the work you've done there might inform your next year on the school committee?
I think the Human Rights Commission, in their Peace Prize program, really wanted to identify and give public congratulations to students who, through their acts of kindness and their respect of others, made an impact on the entire school community. And so the program involved each school to nominate, through teacher discussions, 2 special people who had that ability to communicate with respect and acts of kindness. They were presented in this room with a certificate, a white rose, and a public thank you for doing that kind of thing. After pandemic, we couldn't have the public meetings anymore, so that we shifted focus on what teachers were doing to their students to help them navigate this unusual situation. And so there was a newspaper article created from input that students provided about teachers they had contact with and how their community life was improved by what teachers did. And this past year, with the influx of the residents from Afghanistan arriving, the Peace Prize was given to those students who had direct contact with the Afghan students and what it meant to them and how it helped them make these students feel welcome. And that was also published in a Daily News article.
Great, thank you. Next question. All right, last one. Mr. Getz, what would you like to see changed, if anything, in our public schools that's currently going on there?
Well, besides becoming more Montour-esque, I think that, again, the key is you've got to talk to each other. You've got to, an expression that I used to use with my kids was, tell me more, tell me more. The more information you can get from either side, from either position, it jumps in my mind, the whole issue in the daily news the last couple of weeks in the incident of spending money for a consultant to help develop the school committee's approach to the ideal high school student. And the incident was described with the high school principal being forced or somehow encouraged by Michael Eaton, to use a racist term. It's all very mysterious. And it seems to me what needs to be done is, okay, tell me more. What was the incident all about? Who were the people involved? What was the goal? Instead of these unusual expressions in the daily news, just one sentence with an opinion, and that's it. Tell me more.
Great, thank you, Mr. Getz. Anyone else? Questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Getz.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next candidate, Brianna Higgins. Please come up. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today. I've not been involved in local politics before, hadn't really envisioned myself here, excuse me if I'm a little nervous. When the vacancy was announced, it felt like a natural fit for my background, and I was just called to serve to the community. You have all admirably helped our schools and our community navigate a very difficult past 2 years. And I'd love to join you in building on the work that you've already done and support the district and our students rebuild losses, both academic and social, that were sustained during the pandemic. The quality of our schools is a testament to the leadership of those in this room and our teachers and superintendent. I've been a member of this community for 30 years. I grew up here, I went to school here, and now I'm a parent of 2 young children that will soon enter the school system. I'd like to give back to the community that I love by offering my own time and talent to support the future of our schools. This evening, I'd like to briefly talk about 2 things: my experience and my intended approach in this role. Before that, I do want to address a concern that I'm sure many of you have. I currently work for our state education agency. I have consulted with our state ethics commission and my supervisor at the department, and understand that there is no inherent conflict in serving in this role as well as as a state agent. I have a strong sense of ethics, and my commitment and relationships with my family and my community will not be compromised. Turning to my experience, I have been involved with the school systems in general, in a multitude of ways: as a teacher, as a researcher, a consultant, and a school improvement leader. I know instructional best practices, school operations, governance, and the numerous challenges that district leaders and school staff face. I have a terminal degree in this field of policy and administration. In terms of governance, I've even been certified in school finance. I've supported both school executives and other school board members in understanding their roles and how to effectively work together. For example, school committee members should help set vision and goals and ask for updates on progress, and not get involved in school management. As a parent of young children, I'm eager to work with all of you to set goals and approve a budget that is based in best practice, forward-looking, and financially sustainable. It's particularly important to me to bring a lens toward an equitable educational experience for all students, particularly students with disabilities. I have the knowledge and experience in this area to listen and advocate for instruction and resources that will allow students with unique learning needs to thrive. I hope to bring this experience as a partner to the committee and the district. Secondly, my approach to this role. I believe that effective school committees focus on students, listen to the community, and are highly collaborative with the city and the superintendent. I intend to join the school committee in collaborative discussions and bridge gaps between constituent groups, particularly the district community and city council. I have a great deal of experience in my professional career working with those with conflicting points of view to reach a compromise and consensus in the best interest of students. School committees are an integral part of our democratic fabric, and I thank you for everything you do to ensure that students receive high-quality educational experiences. It would be a privilege to work with you to advance these opportunities for our community and for our students, and I thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Ms. Higgins. We'll move to the Q&A. Who would like to go first? Oh, wow. Whoa. No. Member Walker.
Brian should be let to go because he.
That's where I was going.
Could you just, your comment just now on bridging gaps, but in particular you mentioned being collaborative between different governing entities. Maybe you could just expand on what you think is necessary there, or any examples of that.
Sure. I mean, I've worked in many districts across the state and across the country, and between school committee members, the district, teachers, even partners that they might collaborate with. There's often very conflicting points of view on what is best for students, and that's what we have to bring to the center, is students are at the center of everything we do and every decision that we make. What is going to be best for the students, and how do we all work together to find common ground to get there? So if that's being fiscally responsible, if that is a particular instructional approach, if we talk about what's feasible in the classroom, what teachers can handle, there's lots of different angles to find common ground and consensus if we listen to one another and, again, put students and not adults at the center.
Thank you. Next question. So, Member Callahan.
Thank you for coming tonight. I just have one question. On Monday night, the school committee voted on a mask resolution to allow towns that are currently in receivership by the state, such as Lawrence, to get out of that within 3 years if nothing is going on. So Lawrence in particular has been in receivership since 2011 and had gone from really bad to still not great. So how would you feel about that resolution where a city like Lawrence would be out within 3 years of them having been brought into receivership?
Can I just clarify something real for the people at home? So MASC is the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. It's not wearing a mask. Just
Thank you, Mayor.
could be both. Not in this case, but could be
Was
both.
that question clear?
It was.
Okay,
it was.
thank you.
Thank you. So I believe as a role on our local school committee, I deal with local policies and local issues. And a state matter as in receivership is not something that I'm prepared to speak on behalf of the agency or the commissioner.
Next question. Councilman Colley.
Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you for submitting your application. Is there something that you see on a state level that we should be doing here that we're not?
That's a good question. And the part of we're not is I'm not sure yet. That's something that I would need to learn more about the district's instructional vision and instructional goals. So one thing that I think is critically important in best practice in instruction is getting more student voice, more student dialogue, and putting the cognitive lift on students. That's changing the typical model that myself and many of you probably grew up with, where the teacher's at the center of the room, does all the talking, and the students listen. We know that that's not the best way for students to learn. It's not the best way for students to be engaged. And so when I'm doing classroom walkthroughs and I'm talking with district and school leaders, it's about putting the cognitive lift on students. What is it that students are actually doing all day long? What are they doing in the classroom? How are they engaging and thinking? And so whether or not Newburyport is doing that is not something I'm prepared to answer because I haven't walked through the school buildings or spoken with the superintendent. I imagine that is probably a priority for the district, and if it's not, then that's something that I'd like to bring.
How about over here? Councilor Cameron?
Thank you, Ms. Higgins, for offering your services. So my question, as I've asked the other candidates, is your take on social emotional learning, sort of, and how does that fit in with the Newburyport Public Schools, or how should it fit in?
Sure. As I think someone else mentioned, social emotional learning is often this very broad category, but the national leader in social emotional learning is an organization called CASEL. I can't remember exactly what their acronym stands for, but essentially what social emotional learning is and means is self-awareness, self-management, independence, relationship skills, how to learn decision-making. And I think that's something that we should be promoting in all of our students in a variety of ways. Oftentimes there's curriculum where that happens in advisory periods, but it'll also happen in classrooms. And it happens often naturally in ways that, you know, we might just be starting this conversation, but teachers have been doing for a very long time. When they explicitly teach students how to work in a group, how to speak with each other, how to engage with people in a group that they don't really agree with, you know, how we should do this project. When they explicitly teach them those types of skills, and then let them work on a math project together. That's social emotional learning. It's also about how do I work best as a learner? and how can I bring that to school with me? So when students feel safe and welcome in their communities, they know how to engage with one another, they're better able to access their academic learning.
Counselor Khan.
Great, thank you so much. I think you may have answered this, but I'm going to ask, in terms of if you were to give one priority that you'd like to make sure that is addressed by the school committee in the next year that you'll be serving, what would that be? And I think you said it, but I don't know if that's what it is. I want to give you the opportunity.
Thank you. There might be a couple of things. The thing that actually comes to mind, I think putting the cognitive lift on students might be the how. The what that I think is really important that is manageable in a one-year chunk of time is the early grades. I think the early grades, kindergarten through fourth grade has had a huge impact in the last 2 years. That's where you learn basic literacy skills, foundational phonics, and not being able to do that in person or through a mask has been exceptionally difficult for those learners. That's where we've seen the largest drops in MCAS statewide, including here. I think somebody else had mentioned fourth grade. If you look at our data, only 40% of fourth grade students are meeting or exceeding expectations. That's concerning, but it's also not surprising given what their second and third grade years have been like. And so how is the school district going to respond to that need in their early grades? How does that reflected in the budget, as somebody else mentioned? But really focusing on how do we support the needs of our early grade students that have been most impacted.
Anyone else have questions? All right, I'll ask one. You've actually answered most of my questions, and I have about 20 questions listed here. But I'm actually just curious to get your take on this. Why is it important for a school committee to understand the difference between equity and equality?
That is really important. Those terms often get so conflated, right? Being equal, if everyone is equal, that means everyone's getting the same thing. We don't all need the same thing. We're all different. Equity is everyone getting what it is they need. And everyone needs different things. And that is so critical in schools. And anyone who, at the micro level, right, if anyone who was in a classroom can tell that some students are going to need additional help in math or literacy or sitting still or however they learn. Every parent knows this, every teacher knows this. On the macro level, it's about our resources and how do we allocate our budget. Students with disabilities, multilingual learners, students from low-income backgrounds, they often need more support in terms of resources. And those are the things that we should be looking at to ensure that everyone's getting what they need, and that would be equity.
Great, thank you. Last call for questions. All right, thanks, Ms. Higgins, appreciate it. All right, Greg, we've come to the end. Greg Kulowick.
Nice and high.
Thanks, Mr. Kulowick. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So thank you, school committee. Thank you, city council, and thank you, Mayor Reardon, for the opportunity to present my background and my experience to fill this vacancy on the school committee this evening. I'd like to start with a little bit of background in my passion for education. I remember vividly when I was in 7th grade telling my mom or asking her if it would be okay if I was just a teacher, and I didn't understand the importance of that just word. After a long experience and kind of a winding road, I found myself as a history teacher at Plymouth South High School. So I really feel like I have this opportunity to take my winding experience and then join in the Newburyport community when my first child entered in the kindergarten age. And we've done everything we can to contribute to the community, whether it's hosting hot chocolate stands to bring holiday gifts to students that are in need, or it's supporting 4th graders to raise money for a kind of a global need on the other side of the world. I see this opportunity as an extension of contributing to the community, this powerful community that's embraced my family, embraced my children, and I want to do my civic duty to give back. I mentioned a little bit my experience as a teacher. I spent approximately a decade as a history teacher at Plymouth South High School. That originated in working in an Upward Bound program in the early 2000s, where I got to custom design a curriculum around the civil rights movement one summer at Bridgewater State for students that didn't have exceptional opportunities in their community. That led me to working as an educational technology consultant for about 10 years. That experience as a consultant allowed me to connect with educators and school districts all over the country. I'll speak more to that in a moment. What was a truly interesting experience was during the pandemic, and where I am now as the Director of Technology at the Triton Regional School District, was supporting Triton during the pandemic and helping their teachers navigate an exceptionally challenging time, one that you've kind of done a remarkable job navigating yourselves in a really tumultuous years during the pandemic. I was able to support their teachers, kind of guide them to the best of our ability because no one knew what they were doing during that experience of teaching and learning during the pandemic. And then the opportunity presented itself for me to engage back with the school community and get back into a public school system, and I've embraced it and I'm not looking back. It is a truly remarkable experience after being out of a public school system for 10 years to be back in it as a Director of Technology. A little bit more about my experience as a consultant. It gave me tremendous opportunities to see what education is like across the country and across the world. I was given an opportunity to speak at the Google Global Education Summit and speak with educational leaders from across the world and see what schooling and education looks like in their communities. And I hope I can bring that experience and that perspective to Newburyport and the school community. In terms of my perspective as an educator, I can speak honestly about when I spent approximately 10 years in Plymouth. I don't believe that the Director of Technology ever came into my classroom to ask how things were going. At the start of the year so far, I've been in every single elementary classroom in the Triton Regional School District, often multiple times. I think it's really important as an educational leader, whether you're in an administrative role in a district or even as yourselves in school committee, that you show as much support as possible for the fantastic work that's happening. I remember as a teacher being asked to come to a school committee meeting so my students could highlight the remarkable work they were doing, and it was truly empowering. And I think we have a really powerful opportunity to highlight the fantastic work that's happening, empower students, and empower educators moving forward. In terms of my vision and how my experience translates to this potential role of filling this vacancy on school committee, like I said earlier, as a consultant, I was given the opportunity to work with schools in Compton, California, and Harlem, New York. I was able to work with educators at Deerfield Academy and Mercersburg Academy, some of the highest performing independent schools around the country. And I've been able to work with educators in schools that simply don't have the resources that we have here in Newburyport. They don't have the community support, and unfortunately, the families might not be able to support their learners the way we can here. I want to take that experience, that vision, that understanding of what education can look like and bring that here. Having worked and supported educators in schools like the Design 39 campus in San Diego, truly the most innovative education experience I've ever seen, and understand how you can really transform traditional classroom practice to create transformative experiences for our learners. So I recognize we're up against the time.
About 30 seconds.
I want to thank you for the opportunity. I value the opportunity to be back here, having gone through this at this first vacancy, and I just really look forward to your questions.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kulowick. All right, on to the Q&A. We'll have 10 minutes. Who would like to go first? Member Walker.
Good evening and thank you. It's great to hear your motivation for putting your name in. I wonder if you could just share any insights as a classroom educator and in your current role about what you see the school committee being most effective to help you do your job.
So admittedly, the first time I went through this experience, I didn't have the understanding and the insight into the role of the school committee. Having gone from the classroom side of things, and school committee was a very mysterious organization that a second year, third year history teacher has no interest in really engaging with, and now being in the administrative side of things and kind of in a district leadership position, I understand the importance and the influence. One, it's to hold the school system accountable. It's to hold the superintendent accountable for, high quality learning. And I know there's been a lot spoken about kind of MCAS scores, and I think we have to understand and have a balanced approach to looking at those results. But I think it's a powerful opportunity to go, what's happening in schools? How can we support the quality work that's happening? How can we build off the quality practice that teachers are already engaged with? How can we build off the programs that are already being adopted? And look for ways to just improve the experience for the learner, give them as many opportunities as possible.
Great. Next question. Councilor McCauley.
Thank you for coming out and for your application. I agree with you that I think technology is the future here in how we deliver messaging to our students. As a member of the school committee, what types of technology would you like to see us better embrace in terms of empowering teachers, empowering students to be able to go beyond just the day-to-day curriculum?
So it's interesting, right? Because of the pandemic, schools were thrown into one-to-one environments and everyone's capacity skyrocketed out of need, not necessarily out of desire. I think the greatest opportunity, and I've seen this for 10 years when schools, I can vividly remember when Burlington, Massachusetts went one-to-one with iPads over a decade ago, and Maine did it long before they did. It's not access to the devices. We have the devices. They're plentiful, right? The price point has dropped. Access has increased tremendously. But it's more painting a vision and allowing educators to see what you can do with them. I can think very clearly about an experience with limited access to technology, how I was able to allow a group of 14-year-olds in a vocational technical high school to be invited to come to an Ivy League campus to present on what they were doing with technology. And to me, it's giving students a voice to share their unique perspective on what they know and understand. And it's oftentimes, this has been kind of addressed a few times with a few different candidates, it's recognizing there's unique variability amongst all learners. And one thing that technology can allow us to do is give an opportunity for all learners to show what they understand in unique ways. So this is not to kind of downplay the importance of core academic skills, like writing my perspective in linear text on paper to go, this is what I understand. But if we're not giving students more opportunities to go, how can I explain this with media? How can I explain this with audio? And it's kind of recognizing that there's values in those pathways for students to show their understanding.
Next question. Counselor Khan?
Yes, hi. The same question I've been asking the others. What would be your priority kind of issue when you come on and be part of the school committee next year?
So as I've been mulling this over, hearing you ask this question again and again.
The beauties of going last, Greg.
So I think, honestly, I think about this in terms of my perspective in engaging with a new role at Triton, having gone from classroom teacher to leaving public education and then coming back in. I've never been in a leadership role in a district before. I spent the whole first year with the goal of understand the needs of as many people in the district as I can, get to know and understand my department, how do things operate. And I think I would take that same perspective with school committee, is understand what your goals and objectives are, understand what is working well, what pain points and challenges you face. But I think behind the scenes the whole time, it was already alluded to, like the skill set that I bring is in recognizing the potential impact of technology in really powerful ways, but also recognizing now being able to kind of be on, I have this kind of dual perspective of I have to prepare budget for a school committee. I have the opportunity to sit on a school committee and oversee a budget that's submitted. So I have this kind of like dual lens that I think would be really valuable in this experience.
Next. Councilor Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. Kulowick, for your stepping up for this, and the same question that you've been listening to for the last 6 people. What's your take on social emotional learning, and how does social emotional learning apply to the Newburyport Public Schools?
So my take on it is that it's nuanced, and I think it's often misunderstood. I have facilitated workshops to help schools develop their own custom SEL programs as opposed to buying off-the-shelf SEL programs. So I have an understanding of social emotional learning in terms of like a construct. It's not an ideology. I don't believe it's a class that you should teach. Students should not be pulled out and popped into the SEL experience. I believe it's a way of thinking, and it's helping students recognize identify their emotions, identify any roadblocks they might be bringing into the classroom. And if they can identify it and they can speak about it, they can regulate it and learn how to then kind of transform what could be a challenging opportunity into a really powerful one. I understand the zones of regulations. I see the posters up in classrooms in my own district and in schools I visited about identify the color that you are now. And if you can talk about that and identify it, you can do something with it. I believe that SEL programs are valuable. I believe they also empower teachers to recognize the many challenges students are bringing into the classroom, and we can treat them with respect and dignity and recognize the kind of like unique challenges. Even in a really kind of affluent community like Newburyport, there are numerous kind of challenges that students are bringing into the classroom, and I think these programs can really empower teachers to address those to the best of their ability.
Next question. Oh. Member Callahan.
Thank you for coming, Greg. Second time around for you, so thanks for doing it again. You'll be happy to know we're imminently putting our one-to-one program together for the high school. I believe next September it will be started, which is great. The one question I have is, this is a short term. Do you think that if you got the role that you would also run for the position starting next fall? For the elected position?
I mean, I think
Do you think it's something that would interest you?
I'm here a second time. I think it's pretty obvious that this role interests me. To Mayor Reardon's point earlier, though, like, this is how he started to engage with local politics. Like, I'm a history teacher. I understand the importance of civic duty. I'm here on behalf of my children. They're watching right now. I think it's important that they saw me go through the experience earlier and how that played out. I'm back because this is meaningful to me and it's important. Like I said, I do not have a crystal ball. I will not make predictions about the future. I'm worried about tonight. I'm worried about impacting the schools to the best of my ability with the vacancy that's available right now.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll go. I should see where we are with time. Oh, good. We got time for one more. I got a two-part question. Did you attend MassQ this week by any chance?
No.
No. How do you not go to MassQ?
Because I was taking my daughter to get a spacer put in her mouth so we can avoid expensive orthodontia.
So
bills
my
down the
daughter
road.
got spaces
Also,
2 nights
because
ago.
I was engaged in a leadership role in my district, and I put that over a priority about going to a conference that I have presented at, and I've gone for numerous years.
I was
in a
just
row.
curious. I'm not there either.
I
so.
value the organization.
So I guess my question is, I guess on the technology realm still, we might as well stay there. I guess, you've been at Triton a short time now, but what's something you're really excited about that, that you see as an opportunity that you've been able to either start talking about at Triton or what do you hope to bring to Triton?
So, I mean, two things. One, it's completely shifting the culture and the dynamic of the purpose of a technology department. Like, I'm a history teacher. I'm not interested in networks, and I'm not interested in wires and devices. I'm interested in teaching and learning. So it's shifting the culture within that kind of position in that district. And then on a really small kind of tangible one, it's recognizing that we're getting a STEAM program off of the ground. And then, I think traditionally the technology department might not support this initiative, but I was just meeting with that teacher today, kind of going over some technology that she's going to purchase, kind of the purpose of it, the intention of it, and then kind of doing some co-planning to create a really powerful experience for the kids down the road, doing some kind of tangible coding with microbits. If you don't know what they are, I'll tell you about them later.
Thank you, Greg. All right, any other questions? Everyone good? All right, thank you, Ms. Kulowick.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate it. All right, we're at that time, so I'm going to let Clerk Jones be ready. I'm going to pass the mic on to you. And unfortunately, we're going to have to pass it as we vote, too. So I'm going to start like this.
Or at least share the mics, right? I hope you can all hear me. So what we're going to do is what we have done in other joint meetings and elections is that I'm going to call the roll, and you're going to tell me your choice. And we have 6 choices. We have Bergwall, Boateng, Brennan, Getz, Higgins, and Kulowick. So if you can clearly state that when I state your name, we'll go through this. We need to reach 8. According to the charter, we need a clear majority of those present, and that would be 8 according to my math. There's 15 here. So if we don't reach 8, we will thank the ones that came in the least amount of votes, and we will drop the one person, or if there's a tie, 2, and then we'll move to round 2. But shall we start with round 1? Yes.
Sorry, I should have said this before. I just want to echo what Member Brennan said before we started. I mean, for the quality of candidates that we had come forward tonight, 6 really quality candidates with amazing resumes. Again, I've been through it, so I just want to thank you all again for stepping forward. It takes a lot of guts to get up here, and I just appreciate all your answers to all of our questions, so thank you very much.
I couldn't agree more. It's not my first rodeo. we're beginning, okay? So, and this is alphabetical. Member Callahan, please tell me your vote.
I want to thank everybody for coming. This is actually a very difficult decision, but I'm going to place my vote for Mr. Kulowick.
Councilor Cameron.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Donahue.
Prince Boateng.
Thank you. Member Hall.
Prince Boateng.
Thank you. Councilor Khan.
Prince Boateng.
Councilor Lane.
Brianna Higgins.
Thank you. Councilor McCauley.
Brianna Higgins.
Member Menon.
Peek over his shoulder. Prince Boateng.
Councilor Preston.
Greg Kulowick.
Councilor Vogel.
Prince Boateng.
Member Walker.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Wallace.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Zede.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Shan. Mayor Reardon.
Kulowick.
So the results I have, please tell me if you have a different result, as I have for Boateng, I have 6. For Higgins, I have 6. For Kulowick, I have 3. So we need to move to a second round. We will by previous discussion, we will, it's not going to help too much. We're going to, but maybe it will, we're going to drop everyone who did not get a vote. They are the ones that came in least, so we would be down to 3 candidates. Agreed? Okay. So the 3 candidates will have Boateng, Higgins, and Kulowick. So let's start with the second round, unless someone has any further advice for the clerk. Member Callahan.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Cameron.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Donahue.
Prince Boateng.
Thank you. Member Hall.
Prince Boateng.
Councilor Khan.
Prince Boateng.
Councilor Lane.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor McCauley.
Brianna Higgins.
Member Menon.
Prince Boateng.
Councilor Preston.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Vogel.
Prince Boateng.
Member Walker.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Wallace.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Zede.
Brianna Higgins.
Councilor Shan. Mayor Reardon.
Higgins.
So by my calculation, Prince Boateng gets 6 votes. Brianna Higgins gets 9 votes. And that's the tally, 9, 16, 15. Everyone's voted. I would be remiss if I did not declare congratulations to Brianna Higgins. Thank you so much. And I'd be further remiss if I didn't say a heartfelt thank you to everyone who participated tonight. And I will give the microphone back.
Yeah, just to echo that, just thank you again for all stepping up tonight. Again, we had 6 really fantastic candidates. Congratulations, Ms. Higgins. If you have some time tomorrow, it would be great to come down to City Clerk's office and get you sworn in. All right. Thanks again, everyone. Have a good night.